That's what I'm doing. Oh, yep, we're good.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our presentation on the Luxembourg Global Business Report, presented by Aiden MacArthur,
Grant Sharp,
Matthew Tyndall,
and Ryan Bingham.
Our purpose today is to give you an overview on how to conduct business in Luxembourg. We plan on helping you do business and conduct yourself a little bit better if you plan on visiting the great nation of Luxembourg. One interesting fact about the nation is they're the 7th smallest nation in Europe, despite how small it looks on the map. The topics that we'll be covering today are communication, law, language, nonverbal communication, age and gender, and religion and castles.
talking a little bit about their communication that they do in the business setting. Most of their public affection that is usually quite accepted in the United States is usually reserved for just a family setting in Luxembourg. Anything from shaking hands is okay, but anything like a hug or a kiss on the cheek, which you may see in the United States, is generally reserved just for a family style. It's also important to have a knowledge of their history and politics. That is highly regarded in even a business setting in Luxembourg. You should also keep in mind that the pace of their meetings are quite slow. However, punctuality is important. This could come into effect if you show up for a meeting on time. However, the pace is slow. You might be late for your next meeting. So that's something to keep in mind of. Always have your time and schedule on hand at all times. And it's also recommended to wear a suit to any and all business meetings that they have.
When talking about the legal side of Luxembourg's government, they have a pretty similar legal system to the U.S. The legal system is comprised of minor courts, 2 higher level district courts, Superior Court, which in our case would be the Supreme Court, and the Court of Appeals.
Talk a little bit about the language and culture in Luxembourg. This is actually very interesting because they speak 4 languages. 3 of them are specific just to them, though. They speak Luxembourgish, German, and French, while they also speak a little bit of English. However, that one's kind of on the outs, and they do that one just to communicate with the rest of the world. Their business language, all their business is done most entirely in French, and Luxembourgish is reserved specifically for home life and that family style that I talked about a little bit before. They have all these languages probably due to the fact that almost half of their population, almost half of their citizens are foreigners. They're non-native born. This is just really key to touch on, just because, you know, if you are traveling there, you're not going to be in the minority thinking that you are a foreigner, because you're actually almost in the majority with almost half of their population. One thing to also keep in mind with their language is that when you're addressing someone, they are very formal, talking to someone as monsieur, madame, mademoiselle, which is key. Also touch on that French business language.
Nonverbal communication in Luxembourg. The people of Luxembourg are conservative with physical contact, only displaying affection at home. This in turn makes people more serious in public. And when talking to people of Luxembourg, make sure to maintain eye contact, or you may not be taken seriously. Also, being loud in public is considered highly rude and disrespectful.
When dealing with the age in Luxembourg, people typically avoid asking about it, and it can be considered rude to even bring it up. But 18 years old is still considered adulthood, just like the United States. And it's also been found that younger people have a less traditional perception of the division of labor between men and women.
As a modern nation, gender, both men and women, have full economic and political status under the eyes of the law. If you go there and you're a woman, you have the same rights as anyone else. Something interesting about the country, though, is that if you do decide to be a stay-at-home mother or father, you get the same employment benefits as someone who is a full-time worker.
Religion in Luxembourg is a majority Catholic, with a whopping 96% of people practicing Catholicism. It's similar to age, where people don't typically ask you about your religion and they won't discriminate against it in the workplace. However, they do ban, or they did ban religious symbols in the workplace, and they will ask you to remove them.
So something interesting in the country is they have many castles from the early 11th and 12th century that are still very much intact. Something that if you're looking to do tourism business, if that's something that you specialize in, Luxembourg is a great place to be. 7% of their total GDP comes from tourism, and the majority of that is from their castles. They also employ over 2,500 citizens through tourism.
Here are some recommendations we have for traveling to Luxembourg. Make sure that you are well versed in at least a business language that is used in Luxembourg. French is highly recommended as a safe choice. Make sure that you carry professional attire with you. At most, all Luxembourgers will be dressed to the nine in order to conduct business. If you plan on being a stay-at-home mother, Luxembourg is a great place to live. Mothers receive tons of benefits. When traveling to Luxembourg, don't bring a car. Public transportation is great, and it's easy to travel within the country on a budget. Also, make sure to maintain eye contact with people you're talking to, or you might not be taken seriously. And finally, try to avoid asking personal questions with people you are not well acquainted with.
In conclusion, Luxembourg is a fantastic place to do business. Thank you for your time, and you can get us any questions at our email on the slide.